Hi, Megan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ranjeet?
Wonderful.
Yes. Are you ready to answer a few questions today?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, our first question comes from an anonymous member. They say that, he hears people talk a lot about the criteria and meeting 3 out of 10 criteria. He wants to know, what perspective do you have on this? Do you recommend going for 3 or more criteria?
Okay, Megan, before we jump into the criteria, let's understand the whole idea for the EB1A is that you have to show you are in the top, you know, top in your field, top 1%, or you have risen to the top of the field. That's the whole motivation of you kind of making a persuasive story about it.
Hmm.
Criteria are just like a levers to prove that point, actually. So you can, if you can do it using one criteria, which is like having a Nobel Prize or an Oscar or an Olympic, that is good enough. But yes, the regulation do speak of 3 criteria, but then the intensity of those 3 criteria will have to be very, very high.
Hmm.
And for a normal professional who has been limiting himself to a particular organization, it might be very challenging for one to prove by just merely 3 criteria. So in the program, we do recommend to go for optimum number of criterias. At least going for 5, if not more. And we have seen people specifically going only for 3 criteria have very low chance of kind of getting it because of the factor which I told you. There have been cases, yes, I mean, regulations don't say that you need to go for more, but remember one thing, that you have to establish one more aspect of it, which is totality and sustained acclaim.
Hmm.
Now, to establish that these two things, or your optimum number of criteria to demonstrate your intensity, is very important. And there are certain case laws which have been established, which is like I think called as Kazarian, which speaks about establishing a final merit determination. And what we have seen that going for an optimal criteria has been very, very helpful actually.
Hmm.
So I would not suggest that it is 3. So one should go for maximum number of criteria as much as you can. Better your profile and don't focus on your criterias. I mean, you need to focus on your profile and try to make a persuasive story out of it, and where the criteria should scream to fit into you, rather than you trying to straitjacket yourself into the criteria. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Jignesh. Says, I'm a professional with 10 years of experience and a bachelor's degree. Am I eligible for EB1A? And how do you go about determining if someone is a good candidate or not?
So it's a Jignesh, congratulations for kind of thinking about your EB1A, and with the 10 years and bachelor's degree, I think it basically shows that you are a professional, and I'm sure that you're working in some establishment anywhere in the USA. You need to specify what bachelor's degree you are in. I mean, that will be more helpful for. But nevertheless, having said this, from a program perspective, at the outset, I want to tell you that most of our EB1 achievers and the people who have been successful in our program have achieved or arrived at whatever they have done after they have joined the program. There are very few people. I mean, there are very, very few people, just 1 or 2 possibly, who were there almost 50 to 60%. Uh, just and I think 90% of the people who are there who would just be kind of fulfilling only 2 criteria, which is like we talk from a criteria centric is the critical role and the salary part, which I think, but that is not a good enough way to do it. From our perspective, we would look at 3 components actually here. Number one is the person professional, which I think you are. This program, as of now, is not ready to kind of help artists, actors, or athletes from that perspective. But anybody who's a professional, this program is very good. So we would assess from that perspective. That would be our first element of assessment. Second element is whether you are coachable or not. I mean, we would like to assess this by virtue of sending you some material and trying to see whether you are ready for that or not. How do you come back? What kind of questions you ask? Otherwise, we have seen that people. Otherwise, you keep on dwelling and raising too much of doubts about the EB1A or about the program or about yourself. You have to kind of at a point of time cross a line and kind of jump into the arena of being or trying to become an EB1A achiever. And the third part, what we see is that whether you are ready to put in the hard work. and the commitment what it takes. It is more than what being said. It is just not about yes or no, because it requires a good degree of intensity and incisiveness in your work, whatever you do. It's not about, okay, EB1A just being another choice or an option. There are a lot of sacrifices that are you ready to make. You may have to sacrifice your weekends. You may have to let go all your, Netflixes and Amazons, Prime, whatever you do. These would be some of the things. So our assessment for EB1A would be these three things. Just at the cost of duplication, I would just repeat it. The first is, are you a professional? Number two is, are you coachable? And number three is, are you determined to do the work? We have seen yesterday we got an EB1A achiever, just 28-year-old. He must have been 25 and a half when he came to us for the first time. And in 1.5 years, he became achiever after a good struggle, after a lot of sacrifices. He did not, I think he traveled to India only once, just for 15 days or 20 days, I think, to meet his parents. But yes, he was totally committed. I think there would have been no day where he would not have kind of moved an inch, or he would definitely move a little bit every day, each day. So these are the traits we look for in a person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Next up, we have Sam. He says, I saw that you now have 15 achievers. What do you see as the common denominator among all of them?
Wonderful. I think I said before, just now, that there are three traits. Having said this, but that's not only about EB1A achievers, everybody who joins the program.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, if we have to kind of see a successful trait, they have never to give up attitude. Mm-hmm. Because this is definitely in your phase of your EB1A journey, there will be three stages. The first stage is always very excitement. You're very happy to kind of, doing something. It's like going to a gym. You buy new shoes, you buy new, kind of dress, new tracksuit. You pay your gym trainer. You do everything. That's the first stage, which everybody does it. Now, at the second stage, things become very monotonous and very boring. But can you surpass that boredom? Actually, that would be another aspect here. And this is a very critical phase, because everything looks the same. There is no movement. And still, can you persist without seeing? And so you have to enjoy the process. So the second step, I think all EB1A achievers, which I remember, I can still see them, whether they would become EB1 achievers or not. I think this is evident in the first 3 months of their program, actually. Whether and how far they will take, it's very evident in the first 3 months. And after 3 months, if you are able to still survive and kind of continue your journey in a very, kind of incisive manner, then I think you can achieve a peak. It's like trying to climb Mount Everest, and somebody who has been a mountaineer, he will tell you that, things are like this. Sometimes you have to go 100 meters up and come down 60 meters down. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to come down below 100 meters also, because where you have come down, it may not be habitable. So you have to move ahead and sometimes go back. So things are in a very oscillating manner from that perspective. So people, I think it's more than, what you can say, a very strict metrics based on their skills or how you do things. It's more from a mindset we have seen, which has been a common factor. I mean, it may sound a bit paradoxical here, Megan, but I think the trait that we have seen is more from how emotionally strong they are, how resilient they are, and how do they take even setbacks, small little setbacks in their stride. How do they overcome challenges rather than their actually intellect? Because none of these guys so far who have got EB1A are PhDs, or none of these guys who we have seen that kind of are earning $1 million. So they have been kind of very strength. There is a strong factor why they're doing it. But having said this, another factor which is very important, which we have seen, is that they have a good network. They have, over a period, they have developed, or even after joining the program, they have developed a good network amongst other experts in the field, mm-hmm. which have helped them to build they have a strong community. They have a good constituency of their own in their expertise. There's somebody who is let us say, for example, software performance tester. He's an expert in his own field. This particular gentleman I'm talking about, he would have a Quora followers of 64,000. Then there is somebody who is an expert in DevOps. He would have 15,000 kind of followers. These are not really metrics for your EB1A, but they have a strong constituency of their own fan following, which is very important. So emotional aspect of it and networking. I would just say these two things are the strong points for somebody to become EB1A.
Yeah, absolutely. And next up, we have Priya. She says, so there are two kinds of people, those who have a priority date and those that don't. Do you think people who don't have a priority date should try for O1 in that case?
Okay, I mean, Priya, this question, I mean, you need to give a more deeper context to it. I mean, where you are right now, do you really need an O1? We don't want to encourage you just to go for A1 just because you don't have priority date, because O1 is not going to give you a priority date. Okay, there would be a way, if there may be multiple other situations, that whether you are in the US or you are outside the US. If you are inside the US, well, you might be on H1B, L1, or some other work visa, or possibly O1 also. If you don't have that, there is no need to do that. You can just try for your EB1, build up your profile, and kind of. So I would, O1 is a derivative, or not derivative, but let us say a smaller cousin of EB1A. I would like to call that. It's like a half marathon, or for extraordinary ability. So I mean, rather I would say that why don't you complete a full marathon rather than going for if you don't need that. But having said this, there are people who got EB1A even from the program and even outside whom I know, and they went still for O1 because their H1B got lapsed. So O1 was a more of a practical aspect of it to survive inside the USA for that particular moment, rather than using it as a strategy to build up your profile for EB1A, because even having O1 does not guarantee you EB1A. So it won't help you for that. So I don't think priority date has anything to do with this. Advantage to get a priority date, you should try at least EB2 or EB3. If you try for EB2 or EB3, that might be a little quicker way of doing things, if you still want to block in a priority date for you. So that would be my responsibility.
Yeah, and we get a lot of, or occasionally some people, asking whether they should go for NIW or O1 or EB1A. Can you talk about the, differences between each one?
EB1A and what did you say? Just let's repeat the question.
Yeah, EB2 NIW.
Okay, now NIW, that is also a self-petition. You can go for that, but that is still will put you under the EB2 category. And for Indians and Chinese, the wait period is still around 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But the only advantage if you have EB2 and if you go for NIW is you can lock in your priority date, which can easily be then, if you get your EB1A, you can port that to EB to NIW date. I mean, sorry, you can port your EB2 NIW date to your EB1A priority date. So that would be one of, it's like today if I apply for NIW, I get it. And say after 1 year, I get EB1A. So from a practical standpoint, it will look like as if I have applied for EB1A today. So I have got time. So you're just locking in a date actually. So that's the meritorious disposition, I would say, for going for that.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that. And then next up, we have an anonymous member. They ask, how would we help with this in the context of our EB1A coaching program if they, needed to go with O1 or NIW?
Okay, now we don't specifically help. Because as you built in your profile, one of the components of when you apply for your EB1A is that how you will be benefit or how you will benefit the USA, and NIW is exactly looking for that. So from our perspective, I would look at this that when you are applying for NIW, you are basically just expanding the entire the aspect of EB1A into manifesting it into a bigger form. It is that how your expertise benefit. So let's say, for example, for EB1A, you need 3 components. The one is you have to fulfill certain criteria. You have to fulfill second element, which is, how will kind of US benefit out of it? And third is whether your performance has been sustained. So basically 3 things. Now you pick up one of the things from there, which is how you will benefit the USA, and put that and create a petition out of it only for that purpose. It becomes somewhere, let us say, into what is NIW. So for NIW, you are just doing that. And yes, during the entire program, you are anyway learning all these things. So building up your fulfillment of criteria. So when you focus towards fulfillment of criteria, it's akin to O1. When you are talking about how your criteria or how your expertise is going to benefit NIW, so how it's going to benefit the US, it becomes NIW. And when you combine all the things put together, it becomes EB1A. So I think, Megan, there's an interesting thing what we can say today. I mean, it's a unique, so we can say that EB1A is equal to, O1 plus NIW plus your sustained appeal. So if you put all the three things together, it becomes EB1A. So I think that's a nice way to put it, actually. So if you're preparing yourself for O1, if you're preparing yourself for NIW and you are sustained, you might get closer to applying for EB1A in that sense.
Awesome. Next up, we have Anu. He says, if I get my I-140 approved for EB1A, are there any immediate benefits that I'd get if I didn't have a current priority date at that time?
So, Anu, it also depends on where you are based right now. I said this. I'm just assuming that you are inside the USA. If you are inside the USA, then you have H1B. Let's say that. So if you have H1B, you don't have to bother about it. There is no except for I think your spouse might be able to apply for EAD possibly. If you have, because this becomes like a another advantage what you have. Second thing is that you can also try for O1 if you want to do that. So that's another option that you can possibly, because you have proved your mettle. And I think these are the two fundamental advantages that I would like to put in O1 and but anyway, priority date you have to wait because there is no way. But I think the moment you get your final action date, which is earlier than the priority date, you can always apply for EAD. That's another advantage you have. So let's summarize this. So you have three advantages. Number one is that the moment you don't have to wait for priority date, the moment it comes as a final action, not the final action date, So final action date, you can still go for EAD. Okay, final application date, final application date, you can go for EAD. Number two is you can try for O1. And from an emotional perspective, you are well settled because any case you know that you are going to get a green card. That's very certain. And the wait period, unlike EB2, it won't be 15, 20, 30 years. Yeah. And remember, you already are, for all purposes, you are already certified by the US government as person of an extraordinary ability. I think that's all we have today, Megan, for today's session. So thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful. Now, I think there are some other questions. Somebody is saying, somebody called Ambala Oswal is asking that independent letter should be taken for which all criteria and aspects. Can you give example of what combination of content can go in such letters? Okay, Ambalal. Okay, from an independent letter, there's like more like an expert opinion. If you are referring to that, it is normally oriented towards original contribution. Now. These are basically is for that purpose. So example of what combination of content, it's a very detailed kind of a topic or a content that you need to adopt in a sense that what is the original contribution, how many people are got benefited out of it, what is the purpose of your original contribution, what was the background research that was undertaken, can it survive independently without you? Because original contribution, in fact, is one of the most complex criteria that I would say. It is not something, if you don't have it, I always suggest that don't go for it. We have had EB1A achievers who did not even kind of utilize that, but they utilized that components for the purpose of other aspects. Like, for example, you can use that totality, but if you don't have it, don't try to push yourself into the criteria. So I think this forum is too small or too little to kind of get into the complexity of how kind of an expert opinion letter should be established. Now, this, I think you are putting up another question right now, which says that what goes into final merit specifically with examples of kind of statements or claim put forward towards sustained acclaim, recognition for achievement, and being among elite. I mean, it's a very complex question, Ambalal. That I mean, I cannot just. There are three terms that are being used here. That what constitutes sustained acclaim, what constitutes a totality, and what constitutes a final merit determination. The first thing you have to understand that final merit determination essentially comes from a case law. So it is a requirement of your quality of evidences all across. Sustained acclaim is a regulatory requirement as per the statute, which speaks about the fact that you have to demonstrate that you are in the top of your field. And you know, sustained acclaim and totality is a very logical conclusion. So there is one comes from logic, one comes from case law, and one comes from statute. And it's not so easy in this forum, again, as I said, to kind of have a discussion, because this whole discussion will take a couple of hours for us to go into deep dive. We are happy to do this in some other session if you want. Otherwise, get back if you are interested in your EB1A journey, and if you seek any support, we are happy to the next league program. We are happy to help you. You may like to click the link below, and our director of admissions, Megan, or other admission directors will be happy to help you out for this particular purpose. So, friends, I think that's all we have for today, and thank you very much.
I have one more question that just popped up.
Wonderful.
One last question. Rupesh says that he doesn't meet the salary criteria, and he talked about that with an immigration attorney and was really demoralized after that. What would you have to say to someone who doesn't, seem to be meeting the salary criteria?
You see, fundamentally, I don't want to believe a fulfillment of salary criteria is not something. What do you mean by not fulfilling?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want. If you are an H1B, I personally would like to kind of, study the case deeper and kind of happy to offer some kind of a legal argument that can be established to prove the meritocracy of such kind of cases. I don't want to believe that somebody says, I'm sure your attorney has looked into the whole cases or kind of done this. So I'm okay with kind of somebody saying that you do not fit in, but I would like to know more details about it rather than jumping into conclusion. I mean, if you are somebody saying that you don't fall into the top 1% salary or top 10%, what constitutes high is a very subjective thing. Let's also understand high salary is a very subjective thing. And also with whom you are comparing is also very subjective. Are you comparing in your region? Are you comparing people as per your age? Are you people comparing it with your qualifications? What exactly you're talking about? So I think it's basically comparing with your peers, which is ideal actually. So I would just leave at that. So there are a couple of, I hope that answers your question. Who asked this question, Megan? Vikas, you said.
Rupesh said that.
Okay, fine. We'll be happy to help Rupesh. So Rupesh, if you're interested, please come to us, come to Megan. We'll happy to help you out. Click the link below in the kind of comment section, and somebody will get in touch with you. So thank you very much, Megan, for having me.
Thanks so much, Ranjeet.
I wish you all the best, guys, for your questions. And if you want to come live next time here in the session, participate with Megan and I will be more than happy to have you and keep giving us good questions. So we are there to serve you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.